All right, so it's being reported that James Harden has the Phoenix Suns on his radar as a potential next team. So I brought in Romp from Romp 2.0 and Sixers Talk with Romp to talk about it. Before we start, I just want to preface this by saying both Phoenix and Philly are kind of between a rock and a hard place this offseason, without many assets to cash in on. So while both fan bases might not exactly be champing at the bit to get either of them, keep in mind we realize that as well. Hit the like for me and let's get straight into it. Romp, so why are you so desperate for CP3 on the Sixers?
I'm not really desperate, but I mean, if James Harden wants to leave and go to Phoenix, I feel like it's a better situation for him if he wants to go to Phoenix because there's going to be less of a scoring load and he's just got to be a point guard, hit occasional three-pointers. So I understand where he's coming from if he wants to go there. And CP3, even though he's very, very old, I think he would be pretty good next to Maxey because all he does is pass, and I think Maxey would feed off of him just like he did James Harden. And also, CP3 fits in right with Joel Embiid. They both get injured for the playoffs, so it's perfect, man.
I also agree with you. I think he would be really good. He's not going to take shots away from Maxey. Players, guards specifically, seem to get better when they play with Chris Paul, not worse. You take a look at, not to give Chris Paul credit for Shai Gilgeous, but Shai Gilgeous had an amazing season when he was playing with Chris Paul. I think it could be really good for Maxey's development. And I'm not opposed to Harden on the Suns at all. If you asked me like a year ago, I probably would have laughed it off and said never, but things have changed. I actually value James Harden above CP3 now. I get it. I see why he's better. Ever since he went off against the Suns a couple of years ago in the second half, the Suns were beating them by like 30 points. He single-handedly came back and beat the Suns. He did a perfect Steve Nash impression, just running the offense like a perfect point guard would. And that was actually a pretty upsetting loss, not gonna lie.
Yeah, I earned a lot of respect for James Harden over this last season because he really took a back seat to Joel Embiid, took a lesser role, and really was the point guard. He did the same thing in Brooklyn with Kyrie and Kevin Durant. Overall, his highs are very, very high. I would say they're probably higher than Chris Paul at this point in Chris Paul's career. The lows are also very low. Sometimes he can get very passive in high leverage situations if he's not really feeling it. But in the regular season, you're going to get a 20-point per game scorer, most likely, probably a little bit down since you got D-Book, Ayton, and Kevin Durant. You're going to get an assist leader for sure next to D-Book and KD. And you're going to get a point guard who can get Kevin Durant in his spots, post up wherever, Ayton in his spots in the pick and roll. Potentially, you can probably see the best version of Ayton because when did you see the best version of Ayton? With CP3, and Harden at this point is a little better than CP3, and I think that pick and roll is going to open up, and he's going to be getting that mid-range just like Joel Embiid has been getting all season long. And also off the court, I think this is an underrated aspect about him. He's a great locker room leader. Tyrese Maxey has raved about him. Joel Embiid has raved about him as well. He credits him for his MVP, a lot of the success. And overall, he's a good guy off the court. I feel like the narrative around him is a little unfair. He does kind of, not show up in big moments from time to time. But also he does have moments where he shows up and doesn't get the credit he truly deserves. Overall, I would manage his minutes as best as possible. I thought Doc Rivers did a terrible job at doing so over the course of his Sixers career. And also, spot-up shooting was very good last year for him, but sometimes as an off-ball player, he's a little bit inconsistent. He shot 40% off the catch from three, but I think he would fit perfectly with the Suns the more I think about it, especially with D-Book and Kevin Durant, because scoring wise, they're more explosive than Joel Embiid and Tyrese Maxey.
I just can't stress enough that I really believe he's every bit the passer that Chris Paul is. I mean, 20 points a game, like you were saying, that would be welcome compared to what we get from Chris Paul. Maybe he does fall short during some postseason games, but Chris Paul isn't even available to play most postseason games. So I like that fit. I agree. In a system like the Suns have, playing next to Booker and playing next to Durant, he's not going to be asked to do much scoring. It's going to take the pressure off of him. And a week ago, I thought that Deandre Ayton was gone. Now it's starting to feel like the reason Monty was let go was because he hated Deandre Ayton and didn't want him, and it's obvious he made no effort to get him involved in any way, shape, or form. I love how Harden plays with big men. Pause. I love the way he throws lobs. I love his vision. And I like the way he's able to get the ball to the big. That's something that the Suns haven't had for a while. I think he will get and keep DeAndre Ayton involved.
Some of the things that are going to annoy you about Harden is he's still in love with foul baiting at times, and his off the dribble game in terms of getting to the rim has completely just fell off. I mean, I think he was shooting like 20% at the rim against the Brooklyn Nets in the first round. Against athletic defenders and good rim protectors, he really struggles. I would love to see him incorporate his mid-range game a little more, but it seems like his trust in his mid-range game goes away at times, and he forgets he even has it. But when he goes to it, it's really consistent. It's just that it's not his game. It hasn't been his game. As you know, in Houston, they wanted him to shoot threes and get to the basket, but his lift in terms of getting off the ground has left him, and that kind of results in him trying to foul bait, and they're not calling that anymore. A lot of people are going to be shocked at this, but he probably has the worst whistle in the league as of now, because he had the best whistle, generational whistle, and I feel like the league was like, fluff you, and he rarely gets calls, especially when he tries to foul bait. And also at times he gets a little bit too dribble happy, and he's very reliant on his step back jumper, which has kind of left him over the years. If his step back jumper's hitting, it changes the way the defense can defend him, because they got to respect him on the perimeter. But if he starts missing three-pointers and step-back threes, they don't got to, defend him at the perimeter, and he doesn't have the same burst he used to, so he can't get by his defender as much. But overall, you guys don't really need him as a scorer, and I feel like a lot of his dribble was a recipe of the Doc Rivers offense, because it's very star-driven, and basically like Joel Embiid, do everything. James Harden, do everything. And I think depending on who you hire, it would be different.
Well, the Suns have the mid-range covered with Book, so no issues there. This just seems like one of those rare situations where two teams each have individual problems that the other one can fix. And without a lot of options for both teams this offseason, I'm going to be really happy if it happens. Tell us in the comments what you guys think. Would you like to see James Harden in a Suns jersey? And if you're a Sixers fan, would you like to see CP3 replace Harden alongside Maxey and Joel Embiid? Thanks for hanging out. We'll see you guys next time.